So Dave, I watched Batman versus Superman, and this quote from Wonder Woman at the end really caught my attention. So I think actually that will be a perfect lead in towards what we're going to be talking in a moment. Have a look.
We have to stand together.
Man made a world where standing together is impossible.
Interesting, great people on both sides is the truth. Now, the thing about that movie, Batman versus Superman, and I was a massive fan of the original comic that came out, The Dark Knight Returns, that ended up with him coming back years later, about our age, and in a world where Superman had got rid of all the superheroes but himself. So you got Batman, who comes out of the closet, not out of the closet, comes back out of retirement. He was never in a closet. But he should have been dressed like that with the Robin. And yeah.
What's the story with Robin? Well, so let's just don't go there.
Don't go there. There's no need. And we said to Batman, don't go there. So it ends up with Batman coming back out of retirement to take on the world of criminals. And Joker comes out of retirement at the same time. So Batman gets blamed for Joker and Superman gets sent to sort him out. So it ends up this big battle of Batman versus Superman, which is what this movie is kind of based on. And it adds in a couple of extra bits. But one of the things about it, it's fascinating of Batman versus Superman, but you've kind of got this going on right now. You've got a situation where you've got America and many other countries really divided as polar opposites of the same people who are really on the same side. And it feels really strange seeing something like Batman versus Superman, where you know they're going to end up getting back together and being on the same team. And then you've got this situation where America literally is heading into the elections, seemingly split irreparably. And I don't know why. It's just over elections. Why should it be that you've got so many things in common with your brothers and sisters, but you take a stand over something like that? It doesn't feel right to me.
America's political system has been hijacked to ensure those with power keep it. If you look at American politics and think everything is fine, this video is not for you. To the rest of us, things seem pretty broken. I mean, our forefathers created a beautiful system and we live in a magical country. How the hell did things get so bad? These days, just 2% of Americans trust that our elections work how they're supposed to. Congress has an approval rating of 20%. Our leaders are locked in partisan warfare and they aren't fixing anything. And we're angry. We're angry at the system, at each other. Our country is getting poorer, sicker, more divided, and our families are paying the price. We don't even talk to each other anymore. America's political system has been hijacked to ensure those with power keep it. And for the rest of us, well, it's not so good. I'm going to show you exactly how today's political system is creating the problem, exactly how we fix it, and how the solution ultimately depends on you. This Venn diagram shows the relationship between an elected official doing what the people want and their likelihood of getting reelected. Ideally, they'd serve the people and have a high likelihood of reelection. But a recent Harvard Business School report by Professor Michael Porter and Catherine Gale showed that the relationship looks more like this. They found virtually no correlation between serving the will of the people and getting reelected. In other words, if our elected leaders do their jobs, they're more likely to lose their jobs. How is that possible? The report blames it on two privately held, gain-seeking organizations, America's two major political parties. In 2019, both major parties publicly threatened to blacklist candidates and contractors who veered from the party lines. They control the money, the debates, the primaries. They even draw their own voting districts. A full 61% of Americans want another option. But any third party or independent who runs is seen as a spoiler. So year after year, we choose between the lesser of two evils, Democrats, Republicans, Republicans, Democrats. In any other environment, a new competitor would swoop in to better serve their constituency. You hate your cable company? Here comes streaming. But the two parties have rigged the system to block competition. But it gets worse. In 86% of House races, we now know which party will win the general election before it even starts. That means all of the competition is in the primaries, where as few as 14% of voters participate. And primary voters tend to be more partisan than those who vote in the general election. So the most partisan candidates win the primary. They're virtually guaranteed to win the general, so you can guess what happens next. Over time, the parties move further and further apart. This graphic shows members of Congress who worked with the other party to pass a law in 1953. The gray lines represent their collaboration. The more lines you see, the more times they crossed party lines to pass a law. This is how it looked in 67, in 81. Look what happened in 1995, and by 2011, it represents where we are today. Hardliners are rewarded, collaboration is vilified. Congress is so gridlocked they can't even pass the most basic laws to improve the lives of everyday Americans. For the first time since the Great Depression, life expectancy in the U.S. is actually going down while it goes up in the rest of the world. We were once ranked top in the world for education. We've fallen to 27th. We can't afford life-saving prescriptions, and medical bills are forcing families into bankruptcy. Almost half of American families can't even afford basic necessities like rent and food. What I want to know is, how do we fix it?
Well, I mean, for me, living here in the United States, it really pains me to see what's going on. I mean, every time that I see social media, I have a feeling of people, I mean, they are all Americans. And what seems to happen is that the divide and conquer mentality has already get into them. And right now, it's just everybody's an enemy. I mean, if you don't think like me, you're my enemy. And I just don't think that it should be like that. And you know, I was thinking something that really got me thinking. The last time that I saw so much togetherness in the United States was in 9/11. Let's just watch this clip to remember that.
Finally today, 9/11 was one of the worst things that ever happened to America, and those of us who live in the Northeast will always carry special memories of the day. I knew 10 people who died that day or lost close relatives, and my memories are nothing compared to their losses. But I remember how helpless we felt that long morning until we located and knew our younger daughter, who worked in Midtown Manhattan, was safe. As the grandfather of twins, I remember actually feeling physical pain when I learned that 11 twins had lost siblings that day. But I also remember some wonderful things. God bless America. Members of Congress gathering on the Capitol steps to sing God Bless America that night. The country and its elected representatives were coming together on 9/11 as we had not come together since World War II. The next day, as I drove to work, there was suddenly no road rage. People honked and smiled and flew the stars and stripes from their radio antennas. Congress passed a $40 billion emergency appropriations bill that day and passed it unanimously. The unity would not last long, but I was there. I saw it happen. 10 years later, I sometimes wonder if we could still come together as we did then. To be honest, sometimes I'm not sure. But I want to believe with all my heart that we could.
Yeah, I remember I was working on the radio at the time, and I just finished my shift. And I got home, and my fiance at the time said, "Have you seen what's on the news?" And I went, "No, not at all." So I got on, and we turned it on, and we're watching live what was happening to the Trade Center buildings. And we couldn't believe it. It felt like the end of the world as we know it. And in many ways it was. The world became a different place on the back end of that. Not just the fact that it ended up with our inability to fly without tons of security and stuff, and x-ray machines, which never used to exist at all. But also it seemed to be that the world had decided that it would start some kind of really horrible war against each other that didn't need to be had. I felt in many ways the politicians just jumped on top of it and used it to inflame situations, but there's no doubt there was a problem there that needed addressing at the same time. But it really felt that after the Second World War, when you look back at what went on, because it's now 75 years, we're celebrating 75 and everything, 75 years since D-Day, the war ended, the Second World War ended. And I've got friends from almost every country. In fact, I don't know a country I haven't got friends from. The Germans and the British and the Russians and French, and everybody's just friends now. In fact, when you commemorate the end of World D-Day, you got Germany going along and respecting other countries involved in it and all promising that we will not do this again. However, it feels like it's being forced to happen again, and that really hurts.
Yeah, well, that's exactly my fear. I mean, I am afraid, very honestly, I am afraid that it doesn't matter what the result is going to be in the election. There might be a civil war that neither one of the sides is.
Don't mention the names. Don't mention the names of anybody.
I'm not mentioning any names, but I'm just saying it's going to be very, very scary that neither one of them can accept defeat, and that there's going to be social revolt, and there's going to be all sorts of things. And all of them are American. I mean, a civil war is just unthinkable. But of course, I mean, all we need to do is we have to create the conscience that, you know, we are all in this together. I mean, we are going through a very difficult time. We are going through unprecedented times with the pandemic. We have seen that after a huge thing like 9/11, everybody came together. We've seen that after the end of the war, I mean, you saw now, I mean, right now you're seeing here on the screen, Germany and also President Macron. And you're seeing Prince Charles and Boris Johnson and everybody taking into consideration, we have gone to so much pain in being separated and thinking differently. Let's just work together. And I really hope that that's going to be what's going to happen as soon as possible, if we can actually get everybody to work together, because it's really a shame.
I'm Dave Crane coming from Dubai.
And this is Ernesto Verdugo coming from Houston.
And I think we should send a message. Hold on.
What is this?
Subscribe. Make sure you do. Otherwise, you're going to miss out on all the brand new shows, all the tips, tricks, tools, and techniques, and you'll get none of them. And what's even worse is we'll have to get proper jobs.